What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, I have me, and so I'm Jason. Hi, it's good to see you. How y'all doing? So yeah, I'm gonna do something a little odd today, and I wanted to just try to scope out this project, and so. What I'm trying to do here is we have a look at everybody in the chat. We got Talbs in here, we got Tamaz, Ryan, Ali Pixel. All right. Okay, so here's what I have going today. I have been asked by Netlify to make a swag store. And if any of you have been following me around on Twitter, or if you've been unfortunate enough to be within earshot of me at literally any point in the last 2 years, I've probably talked about the Gatsby swag store, right? And so this is a project that I put together for Gatsby. It was a lot of fun. I worked with Marissa on this, and we basically just created a way for you to get like a thank you if you contribute to open source, right? So this was a really fun. It was a really fun project to build. We got to combine a lot of good stuff. We used Gatsby for the front end. We've got Shopify in the back end. We're connecting to different APIs, and we're creating a lot of fun stuff here. So when I came to Netlify, I was like, hey, what if we had one of these? And everybody was super on board. And yeah, so we are going to build one of those, right? So there's a work in progress of design, and I'm just going to show this, and I apologize to Rafa because he's probably going to kill me when he sees that I'm showing like work in progress stuff. But so we've just been working on this design, and the design is to the point where we can start writing code. And I have been saying to myself for about a week now, all right, I'm going to write a scope for this swag store. And then I realized that I was procrastinating, and then I realized that I was going to continue procrastinating. And so it occurred to me that I could do like triple duty with this. Like, one, we need a scope. Two, I saw an opportunity to kind of share this process because like scoping isn't something that gets talked about a lot. I was talking to little Bobby Tables before we kicked off today. And, he mentioned, he's like, a lot of people talk about the code. They talk about how they're building things, what they're doing, specific techniques. But what a lot of people never cover is, how did you decide what to work on? How did you decide how you're going to do this? And so we're going to talk about that and see kind of, I've been doing this for a while. I don't think I'm the best at it, but I think I do okay. So I'm gonna go in and just give this a shot. Let's see what happens if I scope this thing out. And then the third thing is, I really just needed someone to keep me sitting still for long enough to get this scope done. So we're doing lots of multi-leveraging time here. So anyways, thanks, Phil. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the swag store, and we're going to talk through what it is. So the way that I like to scope out projects is I try to get a sense of like, what's the end state? What's the thing that's true when we're done? And this swag store is pretty ambitious. We want to do a lot of fun stuff with it. So what I'm going to do after we think about the end state is I'm going to try to think about like, what are we shipping first? Because we're not going to get it all done and then ship it. We're going to get good enough. We're going to get it out the door, and then we're going to iterate and add more features as time goes on. So once we've decided what good enough is, I'm going to start breaking good enough down into finite tasks. And I want those tasks to be, I have a really cheesy acronym that helps me remember what I want, but I call it the ATOM technique, right? ATOM. And what that stands for, actually, let me open let's write this out because get out of here. All right, so let's go into, I don't really care. We're going to go into dev, and no, let's go into the Learn with Jason folder. And then we're going to make dir store scope. And then I'm going to get into it. All right. And so I can open this. Uh-oh. Beach balls. All right, here we go. We're good. So I'm going to create a new file. Oh, dear. Is it going to be one of those days, computer?
Oh, so we would need to add code.
All right, so let's save this as a markdown file. And I'm just going to call this like scope.md. And what I want is to create a swag store scope. And so one of the ways that I want this to happen is, so if we start at the top, we have, so the first thing that we want to do is get a sense of the end state. And this is the ideal end state, right? And then we want to limit the scope to good enough, which is what will we ship first. And then after we know what good enough is, we need to break down each chunk of work into small tasks. And we're going to use something called the ATOM technique, right? And so what ATOM stands for is actionable, timely, ownable, and measurable, if I can spell it. And the reason that I like this is that if you look at each of these things, they help avoid a lot of the parts of scoping and planning that make things hard. So one of the things that's really challenging for me, for example, is like if I'm working on a project and my to-do item is build thing. Like, I know what that means, but I don't really know what to do, right? Like, I don't know exactly what I need to do. So if we have like, so let's take a bad example and let's turn it into a good example, right? So we have a small feature request on a site. We need to add a contact form. Okay, so this is a to-do item, but it's not a super clear to-do item. Hey, what's up, Robert Tables? We were just talking about you. And so, you know, when you have a item like this, we want to make sure that it's like fully actionable. So, all right, so actionable, add a contact form. Okay, that's mostly true. Timely, all right, yeah, we could probably do this in a day. Okay, so that's good. Ownable, am I the only one doing this? Like, what about all the other pieces that need to happen? We have to do, there's like some copy on a form. There are the individual pieces of data. There are the, you know, there's a bunch of stuff going on that may not be controlled by the developer. So, you know, if we look at that and start thinking about what this means, there's like in a contact form, there's code, there's copy, there's design, there's data. Do I own all of this? And if so, what am I supposed to do with each of these, right? So I would say this is at minimum 4 to-do items because there's like writing markup for this. And so if I were to take this and turn it into like an actionable, use this ATOM technique, right? So thing 1 would be like, let's add, let's see, how would we do this? We'd probably want to start with what data, or we may frame this as an action step. Okay, so decide what data we want to collect from the form. Okay, so that's thing 1. That's an individual thing that blocks all the other things. We can't design it until we know what the form fields are. We can't code it up because we don't know what it looks like or what we're trying to code. And we can't store anything because we don't know what we'd be storing, right? So this is kind of like we're breaking it down into smaller action steps that unblock the rest of the thinking. Because once we know what data we want, then we can design the form. Then once we know, and I'm simplifying these a little bit, but once we've designed the form, we know what it looks like. Then we're going to write the code to display the form. Wow, I can't spell today. Display the form on a website. And then once we have written the code to display it, we're going to decide where to store form submissions, right? And this is the decision. It's maybe not a big decision, but it's one that needs to be made. Are we putting these submissions to Google Forms? Are we using something like Typeform? And like, actually, honestly, that's probably a decision we should have made before we even started designing or coding, because like we might not have decisions, right? So we should actually put this, let's get this up here. What data do we need and where are we going to store those form submissions? Because when we know where we're going to store them, that's going to determine how much design we can do. How much can you really customize a type form? I don't know. What about Google Forms? I don't think you can customize those very much. So each of those steps is a thing that they kind of like unblock the final steps. So let's assume we're going to put this in some kind of a database, right? So then we would design the form, then we would want to write the code to display it, and that could be owned by maybe a front-end dev. And then we want to write the code to process and store form data, right? So each of these is an individually ownable task. So this might get done by marketing. This might get done by ops. This would be done by a designer. This could be done by a front-end dev. This could be done by maybe a front-end dev, maybe a back-end dev. But like each of these things would give us the ability to like assign this work out. And then we've got owners and we've got a dependency order. These two decisions have to be made before we can go here. So now it's not like everybody's waiting on everybody to start. It's like, okay, we've got to clear, these two things need to be done. Who owns this thing? And that's where ownable comes in. Each thing needs to have a single owner. So, okay, marketing is going to make this decision, but specifically who in marketing makes that decision, right? So anyways, that's kind of like the general thinking. So let's example. All right, so we've got these here, and then once we get down here, we can break the chunk of work into small tasks, and then we'll start to like group them by responsibility and like time dependence, etc. Wait. Ooh, Tony's teaching me things. All right, I'm gonna try stuff. So what do I do? Control. Well, that didn't work. What am I doing? Option up. Oh, option up down moves things around. I did not know that. Is that like a Vim thing that got carried over? Yeah. Derek, yes. Yeah, sorry, Eco. I will totally write this up into a blog post this month. Yeah, yes. But anyway, yeah, so what I'll try to do is I'll try to take this and kind of expand it out with a little more thought process as opposed to just me talking and then writing the examples. But so what we've got here is, so we know that we need to start here. We need to get a sense of the ideal end state. So let's dig in and actually look at the design. So this is going to be a first look. I think even people inside of Netlify haven't seen this yet. So Rafa, I hope you don't come and find me. All right, so this is the work in progress swag store. Timeline is a weak factor. Wait, what's up, Eco? Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, totally. Oh shit, Rafa's here. Oh, good. Okay, I hope this is okay that I'm showing this, but okay. So yeah, all right. If the stream cuts off, you'll know that Rafa has found me. So here's basically what we're thinking. We want to give away a bunch of cool stuff. So we've got like, here are some examples. We've got these stickers and all of these really fun, we've got like, these are amazing and they're really hard to find right now. Like you just have to show up at the right Netlify event and hope that somebody from the Netlify team remembered to bring them. And that's, I mean, cool, I guess. I guess that's how stickers work for the majority of the world. But I would prefer that like people could get them more often. So we started looking at how do we make this more like accessible, right? So we started looking at some ideas like this, like let's build a swag store. And here's kind of a mobile first. Okay, so I need to like prep y'all for how amazing Rafa is, because he does this like meta commentary inside of the design files. Like, check this out. He has this great idea, right? He's like, oh, what if we had a laptop fitting room? Here's Rafa presenting his brilliant idea, which is like, this is the first time I've ever seen this in a company, and it is like truly delightful, right? So yeah, we've got, let's see, which is the one that's actually got pieces combined. Here we go. So here is a actual like swag store mockup. And so this is kind of a general overview of what we're thinking. So we've got kind of the header of the site. We've got some buttons up here, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. We've got filters for different types of gear. And then we have this kind of most popular, where we can show the things that most people are getting. And then we have like new releases, and we'll probably have kind of a see all button, right? So then we've got this idea for a sticker fitting room. And the idea with the sticker fitting room is this brilliant idea that that Rafa had, where we would be able to like show the top of a laptop and then just put stickers on top of it. And the ever incredible Sarah Drasner is going to play with this idea and see what we can come up with. But like I'm super pumped about this, right? And yeah, Clemere, I hope I didn't say that too wrong. That was Rafa's idea. He's like, what if the whole thing looked like stickers? And like, okay, so I should probably set some context for this, because otherwise the rest of this is going to be a little much. Netlify is a brand that has to appeal to both developers and to like larger companies, because we do have enterprise offerings, and we're holding up like really, really serious businesses. So we can't just like screw around all the time. But the Netlify swag store, this is not an enterprise offering, right? Like this isn't something that we're using to sell Netlify. It's not something that needs to represent us as a, like, we are very professional and scalable and whatever, right? We get to play here because this is a place for the Netlify team to connect with the Netlify community through making this fun swag and having, we've got a lot, I'll talk more about the ideas in a minute, but we've got a lot of ideas for letting the community kind of earn the swag. You do something cool, we're going to send you some cool swag. Like I feel like that's a really nice thing for a company to do. But so, Kyle Lemire, sorry. But yes, you should. Oh yeah, Phil just posted a link to Rafa's Twitter. You should follow Rafa. He's way funnier than me. But so basically, we kind of looked at this as like Rafa and I think are kindred spirits in that we are both ridiculous human beings, and I think that this store represents an opportunity to be slightly more ridiculous than the average like business website would dictate is possible. So we wanted to just kind of play with that, right? And I feel like to a certain extent, this has become an escalating series of, well, is this too ridiculous for you? And then Rafa's like, absolutely not. And then he's like, is this too ridiculous for you? And I'm like, no, do more. And so it's gotten pretty ridiculous, right? So let's talk a little bit more about the scope here. So we wanted to play with like, how do we involve more of the community? And so Rafa had this really funny idea to put contributors to the website down in the bottom in a way that that like highlights us, right? So just kind of be silly. I am very, very on board with this. So yeah, and this is another thing that Rafa does that's great, which is he just kind of throws in these notes to show you what he means by a certain feature. Which like designers take note because this is so helpful. Then we have individual product pages. Okay, so I should take some notes while I'm doing this. So let's get over here. Well, that's useful. Can I get it to hide things? Hide the layers. Hide the UI. There we go. Yeah, this is what I want. Okay, so I want to be able to look at these. So the things that we need here are, let's close that. So I want to get a sense of the views. And so the views that we need is like a home page, and that home page has multiple features on it. So let's do, we've got the most popular. popular. We've got new releases, and then we've got a like view all, which isn't pictured, but we'll need. We have the sticker fitting room banner, which this is probably just going to be an image. And then we have some common stuff. So these are going to be common components. And let's talk a little bit through what those are. So we've got a like a logo. We've got filters, and that's these here, the filters. And then we have over here a cart icon and account. We have your account info, so like a login, log out area. Then we have, these are going to be our modes. And so because it's very trendy for everything to have a light mode and a dark mode, right? We were like, oh, we should do light mode and dark mode. But then in our escalating series of being ridiculous, we decided that instead we wanted to add ridiculous modes. So we added a goose mode, which is going to use Honkify.js. And I'm not going to tell you what that does. I'm just going to make you wait until it's built. And then we decided to have a meme mode. And so meme mode is where we decided Rafa has been building a lot of like billing dashboards and like really business critical stuff. So it has to be very like within the box, very visually structured. Everything has to be just right because it's serving super important purposes. Meme mode is where all of that pent up weird has been released. So let me show you what we're thinking for this. Let me zoom out a little bit. Can I zoom out? Where am I? Hello? Oh God. It's in here somewhere. Here it is. So this is what we're thinking for meme mode. I have turned it in, like here's the Doge, right? And then we like swapped out the cat sticker for a cat meme, switched everything over to the iconic impact font. And you may not be able to see this very well, but I worked very hard on this. So let me, will you just, there we go. So like if you're going to do something that we want, like add something to a cart or check out, we're going to show the Drake meme. And then I made a pixelated Nyan cat, which I'm not going to tell you how long this took me, but I am going to tell you that I'm very proud of myself. So anyways, this is something that we thought it would just be fun to like do as much ridiculous stuff as we could, play with ideas and memes, and just kind of see what happens. How do I show that?
Holy buckets! Did that just work?
So we made a handful of like memes and things that we could play with. So let's do this, and then like these are just, this is, I don't know what I do with my time. It's kind of weird that like this is my job. I spent significantly longer than I should have on this. But anyways, so yeah. So anyways, this is a thing that we're doing, and we are like extraordinarily excited about it. Playing sound effects when you buy things in meme mode actually sounds like a really good idea. Like a really good idea. Rafa, yay, nay on that? Silence. Absolutely yes. Yes, absolutely yes. 1,000 times yes. So let's let's keep talking through what this is. So we've got the meme mode. Then we have, right, so all of this is going to be here. I actually feel like the filters probably need to go on the home page because they won't make as much sense on like here. Unless, well, I guess unless we were just linking to categories in which case it's not really filters so much as like categories. From a scoping standpoint, that seems like the right starting point. So then, ooh, Rafa presents the cart. I support that. That's also a good idea. So then let's talk about what happens on the product page, and then we'll get into the account page. So on a product page, we want the product description, photo details, etc. Oh wait. So we'll put this here. Then we want community photos. And so ideally what we'd like to have is like submitted by the community somehow. And you know, in a perfect world, we'd use Twilio for something like this, where you would text a photo to a number and then that would go into a review queue. But you know, this honestly, this may be the first thing that goes in our like make it good enough. And then we've got the sticker fitting room banner, which we're going to make into a common component because we're using it in more than one place. And then I guess we also need the footer. Okay, so we're going to keep these pretty simple. Now, things that we did not include here that we need. Where did these end up? Let's see. Somewhere in here, we did a sizing chart. I don't remember where it went. Here it is. Yes. All right. So we also need to get a sizing chart, care instructions. Anything else we're not covering here? Okay. So then we're going to have a kind of generic page. So this will be any page that just needs plain content. We want to have the ability to do that. So this would just be a kind of do what you want text area. And we need to decide if this is going to be a fixed feature, like these will be all on every generic text page, or if those need to be configurable. I think probably to start, we can make them fixed, and then if we find ourselves with a lot of pages, we can scope that down. Then we have our sign in page, or I guess this would be a sign. Is it supposed to be sign up? Sign up, sign in, log in. What else is over here? Okay, and so we're going to use, well, we'll talk about the tech here once we get there. So then the last thing that we need to talk about is this idea of how we're actually going to make the swag store work under the hood. Now, this is going to be the bulk of the technical work. And what we want to do with this is on the account page, we want to have profile info, so photo, name, etc. We have badges. So up here, we're thinking like as we do work or as you achieve things, we'll have badges. And those badges will be kind of cumulative, right? See the question, Lily. So Lily asks, have I done full scoping for a project before? And if so, how long does scoping usually take? I have done scoping for projects before. Scoping can take, it's going to scale with like the number of people involved in the project, right? So Rafa and I think had maybe an hour's worth of meetings and talked about what the design was going to do. The scoping technically, I don't think there's really it's, you know, every project is a little bit different. So what I found is that this kind of initial part of walking through the store or walking through the project is to get everything in front of you. And then what we're going to go back through and do is look at each one of these sections and start breaking it down into what APIs is it going to pull from? How are we going to actually make that work? So I think there's a general sense of like, I'm not going for a perfect scope. I'm going for a good enough scope, because as Robert Tables was just joking, like if you take it too seriously, you'll never be done. And if you're like trying to get the scope exactly right, then you'll find yourself in this kind of planning paralysis where there are still some question marks, and so you're like, well, we can't start yet. So what I typically try to do is I try to get to a point where I feel like I have enough clarity that I can get something done, and then whatever my question marks are, those question marks should be due to something that we haven't built yet. Like, well, we don't know how that's going to work yet because we've never put this piece and this piece together. And so once you get those two pieces done, then you would kind of pause real quick, look at that question mark and say, okay, so now we have more information. How are we going to do this? So yeah, I mean, to answer your question succinctly, I try to contain my scoping inside of a day. But if you're working with a lot of people, or if there are multiple teams touching things, I think that can be, it can take longer. I would say it's got the same laws as bureaucracy, right? Like the more people involved in the process, the longer it's going to take. And so that's a good vote for keeping the project's stakeholders limited, because you want feedback from everybody, and like this project in LFI is not secret. It's been in an open Slack channel. Rafa and I have discussed everything in public, and so the documents about it are all public. So anybody who wants to can come in and weigh in. But ultimately, Rafa is the decision maker for design. I'm the decision maker for the tech, and like that, we will take feedback and then we just kind of roll forward. But yeah, so that's pretty much how things are working. This boop thing that you did, Eco, is concerning me. Yes, racy charts are a really good thing. So let's take a note about what racy charts are. Remind me, it's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, I think. I do take some issue with the language on this because it's not immediately clear. But like, as far as I can tell, like responsible means like you get fired if this goes wrong, right? Like, no, well, that's a little strong, but like ultimately, like you own this. So only one person should be responsible. And then accountable would be like, so on my team, I'm on the developer experience team. And so my manager is accountable for my work. If I go and do something stupid, Sarah needs to catch that. Like she's accountable for whatever I create. And so therefore she needs to like be aware of what's going on. Consulted would be like people who are experts but aren't necessarily decision makers. So for example, if I go to I'm going to go to our marketing team about a bunch of concepts inside of this, but ultimately like they're going to tell me what they think we should do and offer their opinions, and then I'm going to take their opinions and make my own decision based on their feedback. So they're going to be aware of what's going on. They're going to be asked, but they don't make the final decision. And then informed would just be like, I don't know. Informed could be like VPs. Like they don't care. They're not involved. They just need to know that it's alive. And that's kind of where this starts to, I get a little confused here, and where this starts to fall apart a little bit, because if like a VP is informed and then they decide to come in and touch, it's really, really difficult to say like, hey, but on the racy chart, I think you're not allowed to make the decision. And they're like, cool, in my racy chart, you work for me. Right. So it's, there needs to be a really good like cultural trust and a good culture of like actual accountability and ownership. Ooh, here we go. Robert Table's in with some color. Inform means if someone was asked about the project and would look really bad by not knowing, they need to be informed. Okay, so that's fair. So in that case, that does line up with this with like VPs. If you know, so I report to Sarah, and Sarah reports to Chris, the one of the co-founders of the company. And if Chris didn't know what I was doing, and everybody was talking about this swag project, and he was like, "What the hell is a swag project?" Like that wouldn't look good. So so you know, it kind of rolls up in that sense. But yeah. So anyways, this is a good. Let's actually. People who would look bad if they didn't know what was going on. Okay. So that's a good way to look at this, especially when you're starting to deal with teams, because if you can figure out who's responsible for a given thing, and when you start breaking things down, it gets a little bit easier, because if like, you know, you can put departmental RACI charts together. So anything that falls under marketing, the RACI chart looks like this. Anything that goes under engineering, the RACI looks like this. So those are definitely things. But yeah. Yes. So Swaglify, I don't know if that's going to survive. We have to get approval for that. I think it's really funny. Rafa obviously thinks it's funny because he puts it in. So I'm on board with that. But I guess we'll see how that goes. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of unlockables, right? So the unlockables, this is going to be, I would say, the most complex part of this site by a large margin. What we want to do with the unlockables is we want to make it so that you in the community are able to basically self-serve swag. And like, we're stoked about stuff like this. Like we want to notice when people are being useful. So one example is Perry Ising on our team is starting up a program. It doesn't have a name yet, but the idea is that people who are really, really helping in the community, Talvs in the chat today is one of them. We want to be able to send like a care package that's like, yo, we recognize that you're doing great work and we totally want to say thank you. So it's like by doing Netlify Community, which if you haven't seen Netlify Community, it is a cool place where you can go ask questions. And if you want to help people, there are questions here that you can go and help answer, right? And it's a great way to help out in the community, especially if you've been doing a lot of Netlify work. And so what we want to do is we want to notice that. We want to say, hey, you're helping a lot. You're a subject matter expert. You're being useful in the community, and you are like helping this community feel like a welcoming place. So we're going to give you a swag bag. You earn the badge of whatever it's called, community champion, something like that. And then you're going to be kind of, you'll get a badge here, a badge on the community, and you'll also get a discount code to get yourself a big kit of fun stuff from the swag store. And so if you've done anything in the Gatsby community, this may sound familiar, because the way that Gatsby does it is anybody who gets a pull request merged into a Gatsby repo is automatically qualified for free swag. And then if you get 5 pull requests, you're qualified for like a second tier of swag. And we want to take that idea and just go further with it. So not just code contributions. We want to go to community contributions. We want to go to like even stuff in the app. Like, have you tried analytics? It's dope. You've tried it? Great. Here's a t-shirt. Have you built a build plugin for the Netlify build plugin beta? Great. Here's something exclusive that you can only get by doing that. Like, so it's not like get some free swag, but like legitimately kind of like Hacktoberfest. You have to do the thing to get this item. Because it's like, you know, I love that stuff. I do Hacktoberfest every year because I love being part of that type of movement, right? It's super fun. So anyway, so the way that this is going to work is each of these has to be tied into something. So the sign up and the login, like we're going to use Netlify OAuth for this. So you're going to actually log in with your Netlify account to get into the store. We also, in order to do the unlockables, so we're going to use the Netlify OAuth, because then I can do things like check the number of sites that you've deployed. And like here, it's like, oh, have you deployed 5 times? Perfect. We can unlock a thing. Or like, have you invited a team member? Great. We can unlock a thing. Have you tried analytics or you know, whatever your build minutes or whatever it is that you're using? We can like tie those to different reward tiers. We also need to get our community account, which we use Discourse. And so Discourse is going to be hooked up. Then we need to hook up to a GitHub account. And that GitHub account is going to let us pull in like your contributions to repos, whether or not you've got pull requests, if you're opening issues, if you're responding to issues, all those good things. And that'll help us do additional things like that. And what else? Oh, yeah, the copy is so good, Nikki. Rafa probably never intended this to see the light of day, but holy shit, is he funny. And so then on top of the GitHub OAuth, we also want to be able to pull in you know, other areas. And so we're not quite sure what this looks like yet, but like if you write an article about how to use something, I want that to count. And I don't want that to be this manual process where you have to like email somebody and then they have to get around. So there's a lot of fun here. But yeah, we're pretty pumped about this. So all that being said, we're going to have to dig into how this works, because each of these then is going to be backed by a different API. And I think, yeah, I agree, Robert. Like this is 100% what we're going toward. Like we want this to be something where it's not just code that counts, right? There's so much that goes into building a community that is not code related. And it's really, really difficult to track that in any way. So what we want to do is we want to make it just as easy for someone to be recognized and treated as a high contributing member of the community if they talk about it or teach people how to do it as they would if they wrote code. So I think there's a lot of value here. Really, really excited about that. So now I think that's all the pages. Let me do like the high level view here and make sure I didn't miss any. Sizing chart. Okay. That's the meme mode. Okay. Oh, look at this one. This is so good. Again, just like meta commentary from Rafa. Okay. So I think this is good. This puts us in a good spot. So from here, I feel like this is the worldview, right? This is everything. And so these are the parts that scare me, because this is going to be the bulk of the work. And there are a lot of things that could go sideways in here because, I don't know, maybe I can't get what I need out of Discourse. And then I'm just like, oh, great. No. Well, to the best of my knowledge, none of Rafa's meta commentary has made it into production until now. Because I totally want to include some of it. But yeah, so that is all that I think we're doing here. And then like the meme mode itself is going to be kind of a big thing. The Goose mode is not really going to be that big of a thing. It's effectively installing Honkify. And then I guess I'll just tell you because I'm going to have to scope it out anyways. But when you activate it, I'm going to swap out all the images of products for the Goose. And then if you click anything, it's going to honk until you deactivate the thing. So it'll basically render the site unusable, which is just extremely funny to me. So then, like this fitting room, I also think is going to be large. But on the bright side, what we can do is that is such an independent scope that like it's almost going to be its own React app that gets mounted into the React app. So we can build that completely separately and roll that out when it's ready. So that is kind of the state of the world, right? So this is the big thing. Now we need to break it down into like what's our good enough. And so I'm going to order this in terms of like what's most important. And I'm going to do this using Notion. And I'm realizing that I think I need to open the Netlify Notion so that the scope isn't locked in my Notion account. You know what? Maybe I'll just do it like this. Let's create a new project. I'll create a new repo. Ooh, I don't know how to do that in a small window. What if I go in here? Oh my God, why is this so? There we go. I'm going to create a new repo. And we're going to call this Netlify Swag Store. Eventually, this will probably move, but it'll the code and Vishing Sony. This is the technical scope. Rafa and I had another call earlier about how to do it, like what the design was going to be. So there was an initial scope conversation where we wrote down a lot of this stuff, and then now we're going into like the technical scope. So now the design has kind of converged on the point. We're able to go there. So let's see. Next. Yeah, I could totally do this with Hub. I'm just not gonna do that today. So let's see. Code and planning for the Netlify Swag Store. Okay. So I'm gonna create. We'll make this MIT. Is there like a Gatsby JavaScript? What do you? Never looked at this before. Fancy. There are many of these. Okay, I'm not gonna stress about that. That seems like a lot. All right, and actually, I'm gonna skip the license too because I want to be able to clone into this without having to delete things. So we're gonna go with an empty repo, and then I'm going to create a project. Yes? Yeah, why not? So I'm going to see. Good enough. Swag store scope. These are the features that must exist before we can launch the first iteration of the Swag store. Right? So basically what we're trying to do is break this down into something that is contained. And the other thing that's nice about this is what we're saying is this isn't the end. Like, I expect that this project is going to like slowly mature over time, because one of the things that we haven't even looked at yet is like, we haven't measured what works, right? All of these ideas are pretty new. So we might get in here and realize that finding ways to reach out and thank non-code community members is explosively successful. We're going to have to come up with more ways to do that, but we can't do that now. We can't just like assume that all of these things are going to be a success. It might be that a lot of this stuff is a terrible idea and like nobody cares and wants it or anything. So we need the ability to start with what we suspect will work, measure, and then make adjustments as we go on. So let's create this project. Phil, I would agree with you. Like the design right now is not like this isn't like a Rafa and I weren't going for like a feature complete kind of thing. I suspect that Rafa is planning on kind of jumping in and messing around as we build it to make things more fun. So I expect
so
that'll
we would
be.
need to add code.
It's not no,
Is
it's
that
not
right?
time for code yet. It's just time for GitHub. So let's go with a I don't know what do we want to call this? Well, I probably should have just done this, right? I don't know. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna do to do. What does that mean? Yes, newly added, reopened. Oh, that's a cool idea. Cool. Yeah, I'm into it. Let's let GitHub do stuff. Then I will add an in progress. Really, we're not going to do anything with this today, but let's just. I might mess with these. Wait, get out of here. Pending approval. Approved. Sure. Sure. Why not? And then we'll add a done. Closed. Merged. Yeah. All right. That seems reasonable. Um, but yeah, so just reading the chat here to make sure I'm not missing anything. We have project scope and technical scope should be aligned together. Yeah, they and so I think like this scoping that I'm doing right now is I already know for the most part what like we talked through. Let me find this doc because I think it'll help. I wrote up kind of what I knew I wanted to be true about the swag store before we even started, and that was sort of a validation of it all, just to make sure that it wasn't a terrible idea. So let me see if I can. I think you know what? I think everything's fine here. Let's go full width. So basically, I went through and I wrote down like these are the things that need to be true, what we're trying to accomplish, the overarching strategy, and then I broke down technically. We had the ecom, Netlify OAuth, discourse, and how we're going to do data storage. We're going to put the front end in Gatsby. We're going to use serverless functions for any kind of async stuff. So this was like we talked through technically how this stuff was going to work. So this is more of like how do we take that broad idea? So this is super broad. There's no technical like no code is here. We didn't make any opinions. We just said, oh, Shopify solves this problem. Netlify OAuth solves this other problem. We'll be able to store data in discourse because they've got meta fields. Like all these things that we wanted to talk through. And then because, you know, Gatsby is a lot of what I've done, let's use that because that's the platform I'm familiar with. So anyways, this was like the initial ultra broad technical scope. And then on top of that, we're going to use this doc that we've created that kind of goes through the more fine-grained, this is what the website contains in terms of components. And we're going to build out these components into like to-do lists, and we want those to be small. Let me check time here just to make sure I've got a meeting that I don't want to miss. Let me check what time that meeting is. What time do I do stuff? All right, I've got an hour and a half. I hope we don't need that long. So anyways, let's dive in here. So we've got our big chunks, right? So our big chunks are going to be the common components. And each of those common components really, let's see, how do I want to do this? Do we want to create the common components first? So we've kind of got those designed already, right? So from a foundational level, maybe what we want to do is, all right, so we're pulling in. Let's just like do a scratch pad here. So I'm gonna make this full screen, and I'm gonna pull another copy of this over to the right. Can we do that? Yeah. All right. So I want to look at here. So the products come from Shopify. The UI is Gatsby. The cart is it will use Shopify Buy SDK, which is like a JavaScript library that lets us do the quantities and kick out to Shopify's checkout flow and store and retrieve carts. Like it's pretty handy. Let's see, the modes. I'm thinking the modes will be through Theme UI, because Theme UI lets us set kind of some global values that'll allow us to control like the fonts and stuff like that. The sticker fitting room is effectively a standalone React app. And Sarah's going to build that. So I'm going to move this out into like, I'm basically, I don't want to put pressure on Sarah because she's got a million things going on, and I don't want to block the launch. So I'm going to say out of scope for like the good enough launch. And let's see. Yeah. All right. So sticker fitting room, and then the footer. I think I could just pull this from all contributors, right? Like, does all contributors... Does this let me store as like a JSON file or something? How do they actually hold on to the contributors? Yes. So I could, in theory, I could straight up pull in this file, parse it as JSON, and then show avatars in the footer based on this, which would be super cool. And it's also really handy because like we could do a lot with this, right? Okay. All right. So I think I'm going to use this. Let's do all contributors. Okay. So Robert's asking, after I go through an exercise like this, do I take a step away and revisit it? I'm almost by necessity, yes, because I'm going to write this today, and then I'm going to go into a string of meetings, and I won't be able to act on it until tomorrow. The other thing, though, is like as we're doing this stuff, none of these decisions are set in stone. What I'm trying to do right now is not think through the entire project concretely from end to end. What I'm trying to do is walk through the decisions that need to be made and at least have an educated guess about how that's going to work. Because where I find a lot of projects fall down is not on technical ability, but because rather than trying to think through everything up front, you have this kind of, well, I'll start the first thing, and then you work through the first thing, and then you get to the second thing and you realize, oh shit, if I would have done this a little bit differently with the first thing, the second thing would have been easier. So then you're like refactoring the whole first thing before you do the second thing. And so the intention here and what we're really trying to go toward is let's think through how we're going to do the first thing, second thing, third thing, all the way through our end scope, which will help us identify things like, for example, this is big and it involves a very busy third-party contributor who, and honestly, it's decoupled from the site completely. Like all that the site is going to do is add a banner that links to a page that shows this app. So if we ship this now versus shipping this later, what ends up happening is effectively nothing in terms of the development process. And therefore, to minimize Sarah's stress and to minimize blockers on shipping, we can just move that into an optional, it's ready when it's ready scope, right? It doesn't block the launch anymore. But we wouldn't have known that had we kind of like thought that, like had we not sat down and thought through this. So to me, that's kind of where this exercise is going, is we want to understand, at least at a high level, all the decisions that need to be made and have educated guesses about how we're going to solve those problems, because that will hopefully help us catch more of those moments where like, oh, if we do like thing A a little bit differently, it'll make thing C easier. Does that make sense? Am I, that felt a little rambly, but like it's what's in my heart, you know? All right, Code Papa, what's your number one mind blown moment from your streams? The most recent one that comes to mind is I had Angie Jones on the show last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, and she was demoing Applitools, and that was like, visual testing is something that I was aware of but hadn't really used before. That one like blew my mind. That was super, super helpful. Definitely go check that episode out. Somebody mind dropping a link to that stream actually, because it's now live on learnwithjason.dev. So we've got products coming from Shopify. The UI is going to be built in Gatsby. We're going to use the Shopify Buy SDK for the cart. Theme UI for the, I think Commander still works, Eco, if you want to do that. The footer is going to be pulling the contributors from all contributors. Rafa, I think we'll have to find a way to play with avatars, because otherwise it's going to be really like, that would be some pretty gnarly manual labor to have to add every single person in manually. But if we could play with like avatars down here in a fun way. Oh, like what if what if like everybody's avatar like streamed into the black hole and we just like play with some 3D effects to make the avatars like fade in from up here, and then they get smaller and then they like disappear into the black hole? That could be really fun. Yeah, cool. All right. So yeah, Gravatar could work too. But I think because of all contributors, we'll already have everybody's GitHub avatar. So that would be pretty easy. Yeah, cool. So that'll be fun. So so then we have, let's see, the categories. I think for categories, we can just use, like, Shopify will give us categories, so we can build pages that use the same collection layout of like, here are the cards, but that only build with those categories. So we'll do not a live filtering, but like categories using Gatsby, pagination, and Shopify category tags. The cart icon account comes out of the Buy SDK. Account info. So account info comes from Netlify OAuth. And that's going to be, I have to think through, I need to talk to Gerald, which Gerald is an amazing human being that you should all go follow. He does like all of our internal tooling, and he has this like, he's just brilliant. I'm trying to get him to come on the show, but he's very busy, and so he won't. But I'll get him on, don't you worry. But yeah, so the account info, I think we start with Netlify OAuth, and then we'll have to figure out what we need to store and talk through that. Revisit when we know what needs to be stored. All right. Let me add like a to-do there so I actually can search for it. So then turn these into actual to-dos so they're searchable. So then once we've got goose mode, honkify.js, meme mode is going to be what we need, like font change, we need image swap, sound effects, custom cursor, light animation. I think that would work. And then we should probably look for prefers reduced motion so that we can turn that off. Because just because it's ridiculous doesn't mean that we shouldn't be paying attention to people's preferences. That one, I feel like that one's just going to be an exercise in like, hey, what if we... Well, so Nikki, goose mode is a subset of meme mode, except we want meme mode to be usable. And goose mode is like definitively not usable. Bdan, meme mode being like a MySpace page is no joke. That's like kind of what I was thinking about is how back in the MySpace days, like, that's honestly how I got my start in web development at all was customizing CSS and MySpace pages. So it feels a little nostalgic to me to just go and do full chaos mode, like no rules. Another thing that I'm thinking about is like, if we build the markup in a way that's kind of easy to customize, we could also just look for like community supplied chaos modes, right? Like, what's your terrible idea for a mode? Submit it. Oh, a guest book would be really funny. That's a good idea. We can't do a guest book. That's too much. I don't know. Could we do a guest book? No, we're not doing a guest book. We got too much to do. So see the sticker fitting room, and then the footer. Okay, we walked through that. Okay, so let's look at on the home page. Like most popular, we'll reuse product layout components. New releases also. And then the product display will be like a header, and then it'll be a product component. And then we kind of already know what those look like, so I'm not going to write out the specific scope, but we know like each product component looks roughly like this. So it's got the category label, it's got a preview image, title, subtitle, and then a description with a button to buy. I wonder if we should add like a details here, because it's not immediately clear that you can go through to a full details page. So let's... Then we've got on our product page, so these are just React components. There's nothing particularly fancy pants coming out of that. All of this data comes out of all data from Shopify. On the product page, we want... Yeah, I like that color per tag thing too. I think that'll be really fun. A guest mode to the fitting room is really funny. It would also be really funny if we just had a way to easily like screen cap and share your like your sticker arrangement. It's so silly. Okay. So yeah, I am thinking about the product page, which is this one. So in the product page, we are going to, let's see, description, photo details, that all comes out of Shopify. Product details from Shopify. Community photos from where? There's a lot of questions to answer this. So this might be its own little project for later on. How do people submit? So then, let's see, the sizing chart. I feel like the way I want these to work is sizing charts are kind of by, yeah, that's a good call, Robert. So this one, like just, and this is another good reason to do this exercise, right? Because what we just did is we took something that like this here, this looks simple. It's like, oh yeah, put some photos up. Practically though, like we just opened several cans of worms that aren't easy. They're not easy questions to answer because like this costs money. This costs time. This needs to be well designed or like it makes us look bad. So there are a lot of like these are important questions that need to be answered. And as a result, like kind of thinking, we drop it down here. So I'm going to just pull this out because I don't think we can do it on the initial try. But I do think that'll be a really fun project. And it'll be a good example of like, we're going to pull in a lot of different APIs. It's probably going to use Twilio. It's probably going to use some kind of a database solution. It's probably going to use like serverless functions because we want people to be able to like click a button to submit a photo. So we gotta figure all those things out, which means it'll be really fun. But yeah, that's all stuff that we've gotta work out. So then the sizing chart. The way that I want the sizing chart to work is I don't necessarily want to have to manually enter a sizing chart for each product. So instead, I would want the sizing chart. Let's see, there's one here that's here. By the way, this t-shirt doesn't exist, but I really want it to exist. This is I mean, it's really funny that you call it the Peter Tingle. For anybody who hasn't seen Spider-Man Far From Home, that probably does not seem super appropriate, but I promise it's very appropriate and charming in context. But so what we want is like with a t-shirt, we want that sizing info to be relevant to a t-shirt. Each brand is a little bit different. So like if we're getting this made on like a Next Level tee, then we need to do Next Level sizing chart. If we're getting it made on a Bella Canvas, then we need to do a Bella Canvas sizing chart. However, if we make two shirts and both of them are on Bella Canvas, I don't want to have to enter that chart twice. So I'm almost feeling like what we want here is either okay, so if I don't think Shopify is going to give us I don't think they're going to give us the ability to do sizing charts in the GraphQL that we get back. So instead, I think we'll have to store the brand and then load a markdown file. Actually, this is going to be MDX because then we can do a simpler, we'll be able to build like a sizing chart component and just feed it data instead of having to do markdown tables, which will be a nightmare. Load an MDX page with data based on brand Shopify. So what that'll let us do, and the reason I'm thinking that's going to be the right solution is that we'll have like a next level t-shirt.mdx in a sizing charts folder. And then if the Shopify item is tagged as a shirt and next level, then we'll be able to say, okay, this is a next level shirt. We know that we need a sizing chart. So go look for a sizing chart for next level. And then if it doesn't find one, we'll have a fallback. How do we fall back if no sizing chart exists for this brand? Okay, so that's good. And then care instructions, same as the sizing chart. So we will basically do the same thing. We'll write up, oh, it's a next level tri blend, so it needs to be cared for like this, wash on cold inside out with light colors, however they tell you to do that. So that'll also be done like through an MDX file and based on tags in Shopify. So we just won't display those tags. We'll just use them so that we're able to show the appropriate information without having to like jam it all into the Shopify description, which would suck, which would also require that like if we have a dozen products and they all have the same sizing chart and that sizing chart changed, which granted, hopefully that never happens, but like, let's assume it does. We'd have to go in and manually edit 12 sizing charts, which would not be a fun day. So instead, let's go with a kind of an abstracted way where we'll say this is a tri-blend t-shirt, and then that goes and looks for a tri-blend t-shirt sizing chart and care instructions. Oh my God, Nikki, that is such a good idea. Yep, we're doing that. If you haven't seen the chunk chart, it's a work of art. This is quality content. Yeah, let's just make that happen. Okay, so this is that'll be a good, yeah, we'll stick that at the top. Like you'll still be able to get the information, but that'll be the yeah, meme mode is gonna need so many disclaimers, Eco. But yeah, honestly, I think the top of the site in meme mode is just gonna have to say, this is probably too ridiculous for practical use. Please look around and then switch back to a normal mode for actual purchasing. Okay, so in the generic page, I think for this, I'm just going to do MDX. We may be able to use Netlify CMS so that the non-devs on the team are able to log in and update things without having to learn how to code or do pull requests or anything. So that could also apply to the could also apply here on the sizing chart and care instructions, which would be pretty nice if we can make that work. So, Seven Broken Mirrors, I kind of agree with you there. Like, I recently did a big change on one of my sites, and I can't remember what it was, but I just like sat down and edited several dozen photos to be a different aspect ratio. And it was this very meditative process of like, okay, I've got the template, I pull the image in, I resize it, position it to, fit inside the new crop, and then export. And it was just like over and over and over again, right? For all these different images. And I definitely could not do that for a job, but like, it was just a nice little, it was like a good Zen moment process of like, okay, I do the thing, I save the thing, I do the thing, I save the thing. It was kind of nice. But so, cool. That then, what What else? I don't think there's really anything else in here. So this then is going to be probably a slightly bigger piece. So let's just talk about authentication. So ideally what we want is Netlify OAuth. I also want to be able to, is the baseline login. We also want people to be able to hook up to Netlify community, GitHub. I'm trying to think, just checking real quick on my notes off screen to see if there's something else that I wanted to hook into. Let me get somewhere in here is a conversation that I had. Sorry, just bear with me. Bear with me. Oh, shop, duh. I need to be able to talk to Shopify. And the Shopify stuff I might be able to do in the background, but I ultimately, the reason I need that is because the way that the discount codes work is that they get paired with individuals. So once, so for example, like with a pull request, the way that that works is that someone gets the pull request and then they log into the Swag store with their GitHub account, at which point we say, okay, for this GitHub user, do any of the repos that qualify for free swag have merged pull requests from this user? And if the answer is yes, we then send information to Shopify that says the customer ID from, so using like, how does this work? So to explain this, look up the Shopify customer with the GitHub name of whatever, and then add them to the allow list for this coupon code. At which point we can then say like, hey, you have a coupon code available to you now. Do you want to use it? And then if somebody else gets that coupon code and tries to use it, then it doesn't work. Like it'll just say this coupon code's not available to you right now. So it removes that need to be super secretive about the coupon codes. And also, like, you know, you run into that thing that sometimes where somebody will get a coupon code and then they'll like abuse it. They'll share it around to their friends, or like someone will get really excited about having it and then somebody uses it before they can. And it's, you know, just stuff that you want to get away from, right? So that is not something we want to do. So we need to have the Shopify account. However, I think this is more background, right? So in the background, we need to link a Shopify customer ID to our store user ID. Come on, there we go. So that we can link up discount codes. Yeah. So that means that like, I want to be able to get into all three of these. Fortunately, I have good news, which is that there's a company called OneGraph. And if you have ever used this before, you're gonna know why I want to do this already. But they like integrate with everything. So what's really exciting about it is, where do they have got Auth Guardian in here somewhere? Is it not public yet? I don't think it's. Keep Googling. Nope, not quite public yet, but I can show you anyways because OneGraph. Nope, that's not it. OneGraph dashboard. All right, so let's go in here and look. So I'm gonna sign in, and then I've got an. I'm just gonna look at something. So let's go look at like one of these. any app. And then they've got this auth services thing called Auth Guardian. And what's really fun about this is it basically lets me set up some like cool stuff in here where I can say when this user is logged into Twitch and this user is logged into GitHub, then I can add metadata name or any kind of metadata. So like, let's look over here and see what I could do. When this user is logged into GitHub, is logged in, or wait, change this to login status is true, right? Then I can I don't know. I mean, we can check a lot of things that I'm probably not going to figure out. Has committed to a repository with a full name of, I don't know what the full name is supposed to be, so I'm going to say, does that work? I don't know if that works, but we're gonna roll with it. But then what that would mean is I could like set a value of, or actually, let's go to add to list at path. And so I'm going to do like app or user metadata. And we could say discount codes. And then I can set a value. Oh, that's cool. I didn't want it built in though. Let's do any JSON. And I'm going to set a new value of like the discount. I don't know. Maybe it would be like, I need a pun. I don't know what it is. Netlib 5. That's silly. That's silly. It's a bad idea. So let me get rid of that one actually. Yes, I do. So now what that means is like if I log in to GitHub, so I get logged in, and then I refresh. I got this wrong. github.com/jlangsdorf/learnwithjason.dev. Okay, let's try that. Save. Refresh. Okay, I don't know exactly how that one works, and I don't want to Google it because I'm just trying to make a point, so I'm going to remove this entirely. Where's my... Do I need to remove this one? What if I just get this? What do I need to... Maybe I'll just log into Twitch. Not sure why it's not. Anyways, I'm clearly doing something wrong here, but effectively what this allows me to do is like do a bunch of stuff in the background that doesn't require me to actually like do that logic. I can just say like, oh, is somebody logged in? Cool. Right now, Eco, OneGraph is free, and I keep telling Sean Grove, the one of the founders, like, dude, you got to let me give you money because it's such a powerful service. Like they do so much fun stuff. And like, what's really like, okay, this is not what the stream is about, but let me do a little demo because it's so cool. So, so like I'm logged in, let's say I want to look at some of my content. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say like, let's look at like Twitch TV. I'm going to look at me because I'm logged in. And I'm going to go to Twitch and say I want my display name and let's see, yeah, logo. All right. Then I can just run it and it shows me my logged in user. And then I can do the same thing for like, let's say I want to get into Netlify. I'm going to get into Netlify and I want to get my site count. So I'm missing auth, right? Oh, but look up here. I can just click this button. There we go. Authorize. Okay. Run it again. Now you can see I have 76 Netlify sites. So this is really, really fantastic. It's like I honestly, it's hard for me to explain how much faster this has made me at building stuff. But so anyways, I'm going to use OneGraph for the store because it's going to let me do all that stuff. I'm just going to say, oh, I want to get like my GitHub stuff. I'm going to say contributions or whatever. And then I can just kind of go in and grab all this stuff. And that really, really gives you it's super useful, right? It's going to save us a bunch of time. And I don't really know what any of this means, but like, you know, we'll figure it out. We'll get there. But so yeah, this is going to let us get a lot of information out and, you know, do some very cool things. So yeah. So what happens next? So we know now that we have use OneGraph for auth management. And if I can get the Shopify stuff hooked up in here, I might even be able to get like, but yeah, we'll see. If Shopify hooks up, I might not even actually need to do the logic to like connect the accounts to Shopify. I honestly might just be able to say, yeah, log in with these things, and then you'll authorize Shopify and we'll hook you up to a Shopify account and you're off to the races as a user. And I didn't have to write any logic at all, which is pretty cool, right? It's like, it's very, very, very cool stuff. So that gets us through our kind of auth needs. Then on the account page, let's break down what those pieces are. So on the account page, we have, just looking at this again, here. So all of this is going to come from Netlify. This will probably come out of either OneGraph or Netlify Identity, depending on how we decide to make that work. And then these, each one of these is going to have to be hooked up to its own logic. So we need, okay, let's start with what we know. On the account page, name, avatar, set from the Netlify auth, logout button from OneGraph probably, or Netlify Identity. Then we're going to need, so the badges, so we're going to need storage because we need a way to have badges linked to individuals, because as this grows, I don't want to have to do all of those checks every time you log in, right? So I only want to do checks for the active processes, because otherwise what would end up happening is like you win 15 different rewards, like you unlock 15 things, and then you're working on 4 more. So now that's 19 things that I would have to like go out, query the APIs, determine whether or not you actually met that requirement. Like you've already done it, so let's just save it and just show that you've got the thing. So I need like a badge storage thing. And then we would need a some logic that would basically say like, don't show any unlocked rewards in the progress meter, unless we want to show them as like complete or something. But yeah, I guess this would work. Like we could just show like this is done. Badgelify.js. No, Tony, we're not doing that. We're probably going to do that. Rolf is probably buying that right now. So Yeah. Okay, so we need a... Let's make some space here. Unlockables. There is a collection of available challenges. We need to check progress against active challenges, store data about completed challenges, and this part is going to get weird because this part we need to be able to define custom logic for each challenge, because each of these is going to be pulling from different APIs. It's going to have different requirements. This isn't like on the Gatsby Swag store, because it was all pull request related. What that meant was that we could do very specific. If I've been off screen the whole time, I'm like leaning in a weird way. So the thing about the pull request thing is that like it was the same data. So it was GitHub data and pull request counts. That's not going to be true in this case. It's going to be GitHub data and pull request counts for some of the unlockables, but then there will be Netlify, like discourse data that we need to pull. There will be Netlify API data that we need to pull. So each of those is going to need its own logic. Ooh, I know what we can do. So we're going to write serverless functions for this. Okay, so check this out. So store a serverless function URL. Function returns true, false, like met the challenge or not. Or I guess it would be like has unlocked or not. And then that way, what that means is that the logic itself is completely decoupled from the storage of the challenges. So each challenge is just saying, so it would be like name, description, and then any other things that we need to do, like labels or whatever. But then this would return true or false, or a percentage for like how much progress you've had. I think that's right. Okay. Let's think this through. So there will be things like help solve 5 community issues. There will be things like get 5 pull requests merged. Are there any scenarios where it won't be like a set number? Because if it's a set number, what we could do is just return like the requirement and the current. So it would be something like this. Like we would return back active would be true, required 5, and actual or current is like 3 or something, right? Then I can use this 3 divided by 5 to calculate a percentage, and we could display a message like 3 of 5 completed. or even like deploy 5 Netlify sites, 3 of 5, right? Like, you know, something like that is contextual and includes information. I don't know, that could even be, oh, what if it was something like this? Because then instead of returning true or false, like a single challenge, like a single action challenge would just come back like completed true, required 1, current. You wouldn't even need to do that. You could just leave it off. You could just return this. Like this could be our object. That way we've got a standard signature and like extra data. This probably requires a little extra thought, but I am generally happy with that. Make sure all the data types would actually work with this. That seems okay. Yeah. What else do I need to do? Like, okay, so I've got the unlockables, account page. I feel like that's all the pieces. So then we can start turning these into action steps. And the action steps are where we're really going to get, we'll start to see things come together. So let's go into here. How am I doing on time? Here. All right, so let's turn these into actual things. And I want to check something first because I think this is going to work. Like, let's set up Gatsby scaffolding for site. All right. Can I convert this to an issue? I can. Perfect. All right, that's what I want. So I'm going to take this and just list out kind of the baseline of what I need to do, and then we'll be able to I'll go through, like, I'm not going to make you watch me write issues because that's going to be super boring, but at least I can get the big buckets out. And then I think what we can start to do from there is just starting to like convert the first steps into issues and provide any context from this scratch pad. So let's see, set up Shopify as a Gatsby data source. Let's configure theme UI to support multiple modes, and we can do that in a way that's like not necessarily completing normal goose and meme mode, but like let's just add in normal goose and meme mode and make sure that I can do something like change the font or swap out an image so that I can technically qualify these ideas before I go a long way down a path. So then we're going to add all contributors to the repo. Add Shopify by SDK to the site. So at this point, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think of like action steps, and each of these should be a single PR. And my thinking around this is like, I want to know what is going to get done in a level of detail that I can delegate, because it seems pretty reasonable to expect that I'll mostly be building this on my own. However, we might end up bringing in other front-end devs, or we might, some of this is potentially going to get picked up by other people down the road because we'll take some of the scope down. And I don't want any context to be locked in my head. So the idea is like, how do we make it so that each decision that was made on this site has a paper trail? And so it's an issue that becomes a pull request, and that makes like the whole thought process of the site a kind of an atomic history. I can see each decision made in sequence, and theoretically you could roll back and drop out an entire feature like, we don't want to use all contributors. Let's dump that. And we can go do that in a way that just rebases and doesn't affect the rest of the code because we're not pulling apart PRs. The other nice thing about this is like people are going to need to review my code. By containing it down to a single feature, my PRs will be smaller and the time required to review the code should be lower, and the mental overhead should be lower. If you're reviewing, I added theme UI to support multiple modes, that's one feature, right? If I add like theme UI and all contributors and the Shopify Buy SDK, now for you to review that code, you're having to learn like 3 separate contexts for what we're trying to accomplish. And you're having to pick apart in the code which thing is related to which code. And it gets messy, right? So if you need changes, or like we really, really need to get one thing out, so we end up merging code that's not ready, and then having to remember that like, oh yeah, we merged that because we really needed all contributors, but the Shopify Buy SDK stuff wasn't quite right. And then a year later, we realized that we shipped something broken and it's become a default assumption because we really had to push through this kind of convoluted PR to get like a portion of the code out. So scoping it down is, there are a lot of really good reasons to do that. I also like it because it feels really good to close 15 issues in a day as opposed to like one big issue that had all 15 things contained inside of it. I don't know. I think it's definitely a preference. It definitely takes a little more upfront work, but I'm a huge fan of this. All right, so add the Shopify SDK. Then we need to add a few sample products to Shopify for testing. And these actually include categories, brand, and because I want to be able to do this will unlock the sizing charts and care instructions. Speaking of which, we need to add MDX support to the site. Check Netlify CMS for MDX support. I think it'll work. I hope it'll work. And then create pages in Gatsby using Shopify data. Add OneGraph as a data source. Add OneGraph JS for auth. Set up auth guardian for combining data. Ask OneGraph about Shopify support. Like this, I'm including, because to me this is part of the technical work of the product. Is like we need to go out and talk to the people who work on these tools. Yeah, Khaled, I will be. Fortunately, I can go in and convert any one of these to an issue. So probably what I'm going to do is actually let's stop there. I will go through and do the rest of these later on. This repo is public, so if you want to follow along. Yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen, Khaled, is I'm gonna go to Sean and be like, oh. Oh, I forgot to swap out the bearded corgi for the animated version. I'll have to do that for next stream. Um, oh, and I need to add the Christopher Biscorgi. Uh, I don't know that I've ever said that one out loud before. I'm very happy about it. So the Christopher Biscorgi, by the way, is I think my finest work. Let me find this. You gonna load? You better load. Don't you dare. What? Come on. Why? Why aren't you loading? That's breaking my heart. Did I break this somehow? Oh wait, here we go. Here we go. There's the Crispus Corky. Definitely my finest work. Just got the blue swoop. Okay, so back to the point. Okay, so I am going to I'll go back through and put the rest of these in, but let's talk about what like kind of how I'm gonna convert these things over. Oh, now you're gonna work. Get out of here. So there are some things that need to happen kind of at the get-go. So this Gatsby scaffolding, this is kind of like thing one, right? And to do that, I'm going to convert it to an issue, and we'll say something like use the Hello World starter to set up a bare bones Gatsby site. And then I want to check if the because I built the Gatsby store before themes were a thing, so I'm sense as a theme. Check if a theme already exists that does what I want. So then that's fine. We'll keep it there. All right, so now I've set up an issue, right? And so this is like a thing that I can do right now, and I'm going to assign myself, and we could probably add some labels to it. So, you know, it would be like, well, I'm not gonna do that right now because I don't really know what those are gonna be. But we can see now it's actually hooked to the project. So if I go to the full issue, I can see where we are. And then the other thing that, so this, I don't know if anybody from GitHub is watching or has ever seen this stream, but one thing that I like desperately want is I really, really want the ability to say like blocks number 2, because then you would get dependency, right? Like, oh, number 2 is blocked by number 1. So I can go back and say, oh, we have to solve number 1. Because right now you do it by like labels, you mark something as blocked or whatever. But I feel like that would be just to have that thing down here that says like this issue is blocked by issue whatever. That would be magic. So then in the project, what I'm going to end up doing is going through and looking at the rest of these. Like, all right, what are the most pressing things? So I want to add MDX support. Okay, so that's going to go up top. Did I lose it? Go. And then I want to get my Shopify data in. And I want to, well, oh, we didn't add one that I'm going to need. So like create product components in React. Okay, so like those will go here. And you know, there's a lot of stuff that I'm not doing here, but you know, there'll be a lot of good stuff. Kyle, that works. There's totally automation for that. So check this out, manage automation. indent, done, move issues here when they're closed, merged, or closed with unmerged commits. That is dope. So yeah, really, like the only thing that I'm noticing is that there's not a way to mark something as a dependency of another thing, and like you can sort of do it with like a blocked column, and you can sort of do it with cross-referencing by, you say like this is, you say this is blocked by whatever, but then you only see the reference. You don't get that like that big like banner, this issue is blocked. So that's a thing that I would really love to see. But yeah, so like once we've got the Gatsby scaffolding, we're going to start setting up some components. I'm going to get some data in. I want to get the Shopify data in. And maybe I'll do that first. I'll just make sure I can get the Shopify data in. And then I want to get the OneGraph data in and make sure that before I start building stuff, I actually have access to the data that I need. Because if the data that I want is not available, I'm going to have to change my approach, and I don't want to have to throw away a bunch of code. No, BDan, Jira is not a bad word. Like, I think Jira is one of those tools that because it lets you do everything, it puts a lot of pressure on teams to manage it well. And I think that like this is always a trade-off with products is you want to give people flexibility to meet their own workflows, but every additional layer of like individual customization adds to the complexity of the tool in a way that is really like it becomes explosively complex. And I think, yeah, it's like if you use Jira with a really clear process and like everybody on your team follows it, it's amazing. If you use Jira and everybody comes up with their own way to use Jira, it's a nightmare, which is, I think, the same problem that you get with Slack. It's the same problem you get with things like Notion or Trello or Google Docs or, even like GitHub to a certain extent. If all of your issues are managed differently, that's chaos, and it's really not a fun experience. So I think ultimately we're all just looking for the tool that takes our exact preferences and codifies them and makes sure that everybody does everything our way all the time. But yeah, I think, it's, there's always trade-offs, because even when you get a perfect process, people then argue about the perfect process, and it gets, messy. Cool. So yeah, definitely agree with that, Bishan. Like docs are critical for all of that. It's like, for any process, you have to know the process well enough that you can distill it into like a checklist, more or less. And then you need to have like cultural embedding. One of the things that, like, we just did the Netlify offsite, which was super fun. But while we were there, one of the things that we were talking about is like, you can write out your company culture and your processes and all these things, but like if you just write them down and then you walk away, it's like, okay, I guess we wrote that stuff down, and then nobody lives it, right? So a lot of company culture and a lot of like team culture and processes come down to this. It has to be reinforced from everyone. If a team member gently reminds you, like, hey, we have a process and you missed a step, that helps remind you that, like, hey, people care about this stuff. If it's just one person, like you've got like whoever, your scrum master, running around and cracking the whip and yelling at everybody and saying like, you didn't follow the process, and everybody else is like, the process is stupid, then probably you've got a bad process to begin with, but also like no process will survive that. So there's a certain amount of just being like willing to accept that in order for a team to function, you have to agree and then collaboratively enforce those processes. Because if anybody's exempt from a process, everybody gets to say, well, so-and-so doesn't do it, so I'm not going to do it either. And that's just not fun. Just Judo, to answer your question, Jira is a project management tool built by Atlassian, who also owns Bitbucket. So it is a way to roll up like GitHub issues and different project management workflows and then work on them in a team. Jira works with GitHub and Bitbucket and I think with GitLab. And so it's kind of like an extra layer of process on top of GitHub. So it's not like you wouldn't use Jira or GitHub. You would usually use Jira with GitHub or with Bitbucket, which is comparable to GitHub. So anyways, with that being said, I think we are coming up on time here. So to kind of recap what we did today, we started out with this idea, right? So here's our swag store, and this beautiful thing that Rafa has put together that we want to turn into a fun way to give swag back to our community, to say thank you for participating, for teaching, for helping out with code, for really anything that helps make the Netlify community a better place. We took that and we tried to get a view of the world. So we looked at this doc here, and we tried to get what does the end state look like, right? Like, what does this thing look like when it's done and all the pieces work? And then we took that and cut off the parts that were either non-blocking for shipping or that were too ambitious for a first run. So for example, one of the things that we cut off was the sticker fitting room, not because we don't want it, but because it actually is it's a totally separate project. It's kind of it's that being created actually has very little to do with shipping the swag store outside of the fact that they'll live on the same website. They're totally independent apps. So we can remove that from the scope and not stress about it. The product page community photos we removed because there are a ton of questions that we have not answered. And those questions will affect the cost. They will affect our workload. They'll affect our public perception if we get it wrong. So I think this is, it's a good thing to kick down the road a little bit and, get everything else right first, and then revisit this once we've had time to see how the rest of the store fits together. So once we've got down to good enough, like what we're going to ship first, then we started breaking things down into small tasks. So we are looking at each of the pieces of the site that as we went through it, and we just wrote down what each of these things does. The products are going to come from Shopify, the UI is Gatsby, so on and so forth. And we thought through how each of those pieces will work and how they connect to each other. And our reason for that is that helps us realize, for example, in doing this, we realized that the original footer idea wasn't going to be as practical as we had hoped. But hey, there's a way to solve that might actually be fairly straightforward and almost automatic, without requiring us to do a bunch of custom design for every new contributor. Then we figured out other things, like here's how categories are going to fit together, or for example, down here, the sizing chart and the care instructions. How do we make sure that we're not duplicating a bunch of effort and making an editing nightmare for our content teams by the way that we build this? Then once we did that, we started breaking it into even smaller technical scopes. So we worked through here and started figuring out, each of these items that we wrote down needs to be turned into a task. And once we've got the tasks, we can start to turn these into a dependency order. So we know that thing one, there's no code to work on right now, so we need to set up the scaffolding for the site so that we've got a repo to commit to, okay? And then each task is going to be something that's roughly pull request size. So it should be one action. Ideally, it's something that you can do in 1 day or less, and that can be reviewed pretty quickly and atomically, so that we're never shipping two things. We're always shipping one thing, and we can merge those in quickly. And that is really that's where we are. So I still have some work to do here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in and finish putting together the cards, and then I'm going to do a better dependency order on them. And once I have that dependency order, I will start turning the most important ones into issues so that we can start working on them and open pull requests against them. So that's I think a mostly complete scoping exercise. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Vishan, I am not using Gitflow. I actually don't know what Gitflow is, or maybe I do. Is Gitflow the branching strategy, like where you pull a feature branch and then you kind of pull them all back in? Yeah, I've used that. I think it's cool, and I don't know that I directly follow it, but I read that article a long time ago, and it had a big impact on the way that I do code. But yeah, the general idea is we're always going back into master as quickly as we can. If a feature is big and has like 4 sub features, we'll pull a feature branch and then pull 1 branch per feature to commit against that before merging the feature branch back in. That gives us the ability to like do bug fixes without conflicting with like long running PRs. And again, that's another reason to keep things small. Like the longer a PR exists on a branch, the more likely it is that that branch is going to get out of sync with master, which means it's harder to review, harder to merge. There's a bunch of merge conflicts. Like I don't do a lot of rebasing or managing of merge conflicts, mostly because I make all of my PRs really small. If you look at my average PR, it's like 1 to 4 files. I change as little as I can to get 1 point across, and I'll open like 6 PRs. I don't care. I'll pepper you with PRs, but I want each one to be small and as contained as possible to try to make it easy to review, so that you don't have to do a lot of work to review my code. That's the goal. That's the idea. And I think that as an open source maintainer, I really appreciate it when the PRs are small and easy to manage. There's definitely a balance to strike here, because if you open 100 one-line PRs, that's probably also going to be a bummer for the OSS maintainers. But like, do the smallest amount of meaningful work that you can is I think a way to phrase that. All right, everybody, I think I'm done. I am going to we're gonna raid. So before we go, let's look at what's coming up on the show. I have lots of fun stuff coming up. Specifically, Chris Biscardi himself is coming on the show on Thursday, and we are going to take a crack at building a version of gopherize.me. This is such a fun site. It takes a minute to load, but this is, Ashley McNamara did these wonderful Gopher drawings and then worked with the team to build an app, right? And so this, you gonna reload? Come on. You freeze on me? I think it's just slow. Maybe? I don't know. Here we go. There we go. That's what I wanted. So so we get this Gopher, and then you can just go in and like customize it. Now we're not going to do anything quite this intense, but we're going to build our own like corgi customizer. We want you to be able to do your own corgi things. So anyway, yeah, it's super fun. I love this idea. I think Ashley did a great job with these drawings. They're completely adorable. Chris and I are going to use the rainbow corgi, which the party corgi, which I've shown many times, so I'm not going to do it now. And that's that. So after that, on Friday, Shirley and I had to reschedule a little while ago. She's coming on. This is going to be such a fun episode because neither Shirley nor I knows Nuxt. So Shirley is very good at Vue and an expert at data visualization, but neither of us has used Nuxt before. So we're going to get together and just struggle together and try to figure this thing out. So I think it's going to be really, really fun. I think it should be really funny. If you've seen Shirley on the show before, she's hilarious. So like, please watch this. Then I've got Aisha Blake coming on. We're going to try to use JavaScript to write song parodies, which is, she's got something fun in mind. I'm just along for the ride because it's going to be amazing. So come watch that. It's going to be really fun. If you don't know Aisha, she is a wonderful human. She's running a conference this year called Title of Conf, which is anybody who wants to get involved in a musical theater style tech conference. It's too fun. You should totally go check it out. It's amazing. And then, we've got longtime friend of the show, Dom. He's going to come on and teach us REST, Apollo Data Sources, GraphQL. We're going to have Gift on to teach us about Gridsome. We've got Dan Mall coming on to teach us about design systems. We've got Khalil coming on to teach us about Apollo Client. Like, so much fun stuff is happening. It's going to be great. I don't know why this says part 1. I think that's just a 1-part episode. Oh, okay. Nope. This is only happening on March 10th. I need to fix that. I don't know why I did that twice. Anyways, this is going to be super fun. It's going to be an absolute blast. We've got so many amazing people coming on the show. So make sure you set the calendar. There is a I think it's here. Did it work? No? Calendar? There it is. So add that calendar to your Google Calendar, and it will let you know when the episodes are coming on so that you can join in without having to be paying attention to Twitter, which is usually the only place that I announce that these are happening. With that being said, I'm going to let you go. Stay tuned. We're going to raid, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.